So those of you who have read the biography in your folders of Virginia Hall, like me, are mightily impressed. This woman loved America. She did all for America. And it's only fitting that we give this award to my dear friend Paula Doyle, because she shares those values. I first met Paula way back in 1994, the Dark Ages. No, sure, she was only about 5 years old, but I met her and we were battling the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Now, this is what I call a psychologically righteous job: to prevent people from spreading nuclear weapons or biological weapons to those nations who would destroy us. And several years after that, she joined me on the AQCON nuclear weapons takedown team. And she was a key member of that. And I'm going to read you a note that George Tenet sent to me in 1994. He said, "Jim, what you and Paula and this team have done will rank up there as one of the most spectacular accomplishments in the history of the CIA. It occurred because of exemplary leadership. It occurred because of the focus and the dedication to mission of terrific men and women. It's a testimony to the fact that when we put all the pieces together at our disposal, brilliant, unilateral human, SIGINT, technological, analytic, surveillance, liaison, in a focused, relentless effort, we are absolutely unbeatable. Not only are we in the process of taking down a network, we're also in the process of disarming a country, Libya, as a result of your fine work." So let me just tell you a little bit what Dr. A.Q. Khan, the Pakistani nuclear scientist, was trying to give to Libya. It was the working plans and process and ability to have a 15-kiloton nuclear weapon. Now, this is the same weapon that destroyed Hiroshima. We're talking about 140,000 deaths instantly. We're talking about something that, if you remember, in 1996, when the Oklahoma Federal Building was destroyed with 170 people dead, that was only 1.5 tons of TNT yield. This was 10,000 times that, and Paula Doyle helped prevent that. I once convened our team and I said, "Please tell me in just a few words what the bottom line of your job is. Just reduce it down to its bare minimum. What is the bottom line of your job?" And I had very smart officers say, "Well, my job is to collect intelligence on the enemy." And another one said, "Well, my job is to analyze that intelligence." And I asked Paula Doyle, "What do you think your job is?" And she said, "Jim, I can define it in 2 words. Protect America." I can't think of anybody finer to receive the Virginia Hall Award than Paula Doyle.
Wow.
By the way, she does not have a wooden leg. So.
This is so true. Chairman, distinguished U.S. and allied guests, ladies and gentlemen, and to all of my Georgetown students in the back. Thank you to the Society for selecting me for this award. I'm humbled to be on this stage. Like Virginia Hall, I belong in the shadows, a place that holds cherished memories, deep secrets, and friendships that never fade and that never die. Thank you, Jim, for your generous comments and for our friendship, your unflinching patriotism, and your exquisite spycraft. Whatever successes I have achieved, I owe to you and a group we lovingly refer to as the Round Table so that we could talk to it in public. I owe a special debt of gratitude to my husband of 40 years, my North Star, our 5 children, and to parents who taught me to love, honor, and serve America. Yeah, they're great people. Finally, I would not be here without the CIA spy masters who shaped my career. I'm just going to name a few. Topping the list would be yours truly, Jim. Gina Haspel. A force of nature I shall call Susie. Some of you know her. Barry Royden, Steve Kappas, Michael Sulik, John Bennett. And we've already talked about these men this evening, the great late Frank Archibald, Gary Schroen, oh yeah, and Burton Gerber. It was a great privilege to work for these great spy masters during consequential times. Like Virginia Hall, I wanted my chance to make history and shape history. So it was the great honor of my life to be part of Jim's history-making roundtable. We were a tightly woven team, just like OSS. We were interdisciplinary experts who persuaded and pursued every creative spy method to interdict, spy, sabotage, discredit, and dismantle specific proliferation networks. One of us will soon be laid to rest at Arlington Cemetery. A knighted officer is battling cancer. 2 remain under deep cover. And our most faithful agents live in harm's way for the rest of their lives. It is only right and proper, therefore, that this award, this Virginia Hall Award, belong to the Round Table, not just to me. This award is also about remembering Virginia Hall. Some of you may or may not know very much about her, so she's up there on the screen. What she did in the shadows with her network of spies, saboteurs, and freedom fighters in France was truly breathtaking. And so, an OSS Society tradition, let's just keep her memory alive by telling a few stories about her. She spoke 5 languages, something that was very important to the OSS. She applied for the Foreign Service 3 times, but in the 1930s, do you think she got in? No. But would she like to be a code clerk? Because she spoke all these languages, right? The Depression had hit and her father had died, so she took the job. Go Virginia. She served in the U.S. Embassy in Warsaw, the U.S. Embassy in Tallinn, the U.S. Consulate in Venice, and where she shot her leg off in a hunting accident, the U.S. Consulate in Izmir, Turkey. When she shot her foot off, she had been hunting. She'd been a hunter for 20 years. She knew very well what she had done. It was the regret of her life, and yet, Sometimes God gives us closed doors so that we can experience and find the greater purpose in our lives. Not being a Foreign Service officer was one of those, and being an amputee was another. Both of them prepared her for the rigors, the pain, and the struggle of war, and the desire to succeed. After Hitler invaded Poland, a country she cared about very much, she found her way to Paris, where she volunteered to be an ambulance driver. And while there, taking bodies and injured from the front lines of the war to free France, she discovered that because she was an American and we had not yet entered the war, she could get gas for her ambulance where others could not. And that planted a deep seed that, while America was not in the war, which had terribly embarrassed her and disappointed her, perhaps there was a role she could play. When Paris fell, she made her way to Spain. There was no need for ambulance drivers anymore. And waiting at the other end of the train was a Brit posing undercover. He was an SOE officer, and he invited her in to have a little cup of tea. Turns out Virginia loved tea. He listened to her stories, was impressed by her observation skills, her grit, and he gave her a phone number. He said, when you get to London, why don't you give this guy a call? I have a feeling there might be a future for you. He didn't say anything more. He didn't break cover. When she got to London, she didn't call this guy right away. But when she did, the SOE knew they hit pay dirt. They hired her on the 17th of February, 1941. She would not miss her shot at being an intelligence officer. She thrived. She already knew how to encode and decode messages. She'd been doing that for years for state. But she was taught how to do secret writing, how to use cover names, how to select safe houses, conceal microfilm. She was also taught how to conceal her suicide pills, when to take uppers, when to take downers. Yes, we did get her stuck on drugs. She ended up on bentonite for 3 years behind enemy lines, and it took her years to recover and a long bout of depression. But her devotion to this job meant that taking those uppers put her in good control of her operations across France. What she also learned was the importance of always blending in. Those of you who've been case officers, and I know that there's some royalty in this room, you know what I'm talking about. You have to blend in. Every time Jim and I encountered something unusual, we're like, we're going to stick out. You stick out, you're going to get caught. You develop patterns, you're going to get caught. You don't understand your enemy, they're going to catch you. She learned in some cases the hard way through her SOE tour that she needed to do all three all the time, every day. And even then, there were times when the Gestapo and the Abwehr got a hold of her network. When she arrived in Lyon on her first assignment, she learned that just south of her, 12 SOE agents had just been tortured and killed. She had no radio operator. She was to identify and recruit a brand new network, and she got right at it. She thought among her recruitments, this is really good, she recruited anybody. As far as I can tell, she could make friends with anyone from doctors and nurses to prostitutes and brothels. Prostitutes and brothels were very interesting. She called them her tart friends. The tart friends would do things such as bring in the Nazis, get them drunk, maybe drug them up, basically to loosen their lips and to weaken their operations. They were quite good at it, and she was quite proud of them. So was London. Things got hard for her, though, when the Abwehr ran a priest into her network. What Virginia didn't know was the SOE's encoded communications were compromised. And they had been compromised for months. That's deadly. Nazis knew that they were looking for a woman with a limp who went by the name Marine Malone. It was almost time for her to leave. An Abwehr officer posing as a priest got into her network and persuaded the person to meet Virginia. Virginia agreed to it, and because she spoke 5 languages, she was the first and only person to recognize that the man she was talking to was trying to hide a German accent. So it was definitely time to leave. And the rest of the story, some of you may know. She ends up going over the Pyrenees between 11 and 14 November. It was snowy, it was icy, it was windy, and did we tell you she had 1 leg? She had to hide the fact that she was an amputee from the man who was trying to smuggle her across the Pyrenees. Had he known, he would have probably abandoned her. So she just pretended to have a bad hip. She was really good at that. I just got bad hip. Took 4 days, and when she finally made it to Spain, she was whisked off to London, and London said, "Okay, Virginia, job well done." She had helped break out 12 prisoners in 12 minutes from a prison called Mauzac, and they gave her an MBE award and told her, thank you for your service. You can't go back to France. You are too burned. Your aliases are burned. Your disguises are burned. But there's this new group called the OSS. Maybe they got some ideas. Well, they did. General Donovan found in Virginia that she would go on to become one of the greatest amateurs, the greatest glorious amateurs of all time. Just to tell you a little bit about what she did on D-Day -1, she received, just she herself, 300 action messages regarding prearranged attacks on railways, bridges, and phone lines. She was running around a different part of France than the SOE had used her in. She had gray hair, lines on her face to make herself look old. And because she was trying to fit in with farmers and country folk like me, she filed her teeth down to make herself look like the French country women. Now, I'd never do that, would I? I might go to the disguise people and say, "Can you give me something to put in my mouth and make it look that way?" She actually filed her teeth down. This is how you blend. This is how you create different patterns. When it came to warfare, she left nothing on the table. She was comfortable moving cattle, tending goats, and during that whole time she was out there in the winter doing this work, she was casing for drop zones, inspiring farmers and country people to come join her in the resistance. And when she would break cover with them, it was like pressing on an open door. She was inspiring. She was tough. She was committed. So, on D-Day, more than thousands of people came out of their barns, their homes, and they began to fight. On the 14th of June, she traveled to a different area of France, Les Chambon, which is well known to my colleagues at my table, this time posing as a Belgian journalist, asking about the well-being of children. She found that almost every family was hiding someone on the run. And she also found that this was a brave crowd. She broke cover and the Maquis came out. As explosives and weapons and foods soon fell from the skies, the Maquis began to call her the Madonna of the Mountains. After Paris was liberated, she and a new OSS officer she had met named Paul became her lifetime partner. Paul was born in France, chain smoker, loved Virginia, just loved her. He was a big flirt. So they had to kind of formalize this relationship. They traveled to France to celebrate, or they traveled to Paris to celebrate Paris's liberation at a bar like this. And what we learned from that period of time was that she loved Burgundy. She might have been hooked on benzoline, but she preferred red wine. And this was her favorite color. So here I am in Burgundy in her honor. She was always chilly, like I am, so the cape is really meant to honor 1945 and how I think she might have shown up in Paris to celebrate with Paul, the love of her life. After the OSS disbanded, she joined the early version of CIA, the Central Intelligence Group, and one of the things that she was most proud of was that she finally hunted down that Nazi Abwehr officer who wrapped up her network. And she made sure that the Army had all of the information they needed to do, and he was found guilty and sentenced to death for treason. He was executed by firing squad in 1949. Someone asked me, once described Virginia as one of the OSS's famous rascals, and asked me if I was a CIA rascal. I said, my answer, it was a privilege and an honor to collect novel intelligence from clandestine sources about nuclear weapons and missiles. It was an honor and a privilege to work with the best of the best. Some of you are in this room, as we devised esoteric means by which to disrupt and moralize nuclear weapons aspirants. If those made me a rascal, then so be it. I know that Virginia and I would crawl over broken glass today to protect and defend the men and women who work in the clandestine service and the SOF, and those that work every day in the most dangerous parts of the world to protect us, our allies, and the world. There is no higher calling than to protect the national and economic security of our people. I pray for all of you, especially you rascals, as I lay my head down to sleep on my soft pillow. Wherever you are, Virginia and I, along with fellow patriots known only to their own organizations, stand shoulder to shoulder with you. We beseech you to stay strong, work hard, win the fight, and come home safely. I'll end by asking God to please continue to bless the men and women of the CIA, the military, our allies, the bold and brave people of Ukraine. And may God always shine down His grace upon the United States of America. Thank you.